Welcome to this Masterclass Explainer. I'm your host, and today we're diving deep into the absolute bedrock of maritime engineering projects. We're talking about standard contracts. Look, whether you're managing the construction of a state-of-the-art live fish carrier or you're overseeing a massively complex vessel conversion, the paperwork you actually sign is just as critical as the steel you cut. It really is. Today, we're going to explore exactly how these standard contracts act as your ultimate risk management baseline. We'll look at how aligning ship owners, builders, and massive financial institutions doesn't start in the dry dock. It starts right here with these documents. There's a quote from the foundational texts of our industry that really hits the nail on the head. In the high-stakes world of maritime engineering, ambiguity is the enemy. And if you're a shipyard professional, a project manager, or an estimator tuning into this, well, you already know this is your daily reality. You literally cannot afford gray areas when millions of dollars and multi-year timelines are on the line. These standard documents, they aren't just dense legalese. They are the universal language of our industry. They're the vital tools that ensure absolutely everyone, from the dry dock engineers all the way up to the banking executives who are financing the build, are operating from the exact same commercial and technical blueprint. So here's our executive roadmap for this explainer. We're going to start off by establishing the core value of standard contracts. Then we'll review the main industry forms, and after that we'll unpack the really critical shift between new builds and repairs. From there, we'll integrate all of this with project management, highlight the bottom line advantages for your yard, and finally, wrap it all up with some key takeaways. Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, the value of standard contracts, and how we go about building that baseline. Shipbuilding and ship repair are inherently capital-intensive, multi-year endeavors, right? We're talking about incredibly complex supply chains and some of the most stringent regulatory frameworks on the planet. Attempting to draft a contract totally from scratch for every single project isn't just inefficient, it introduces a massive amount of commercial risk. So, these standard forms step in to establish a tested baseline that provides three fundamental operational advantages for your yard. First up is risk management. Standard forms offer this historically tested, incredibly balanced allocation of risk between the ship owner and the shipyard, and that minimizes the likelihood of catastrophic project-ending disputes. Second, we have international trade. These forms create a universally understood starting point. Think about it. If a European owner is sitting down to negotiate with an Asian shipyard, using a standard form drastically smooths out the cultural and legal differences. It establishes immediate common ground. And third, maybe the most crucial for day-to-day operations, milestone-based execution. These contracts are structurally engineered to tie the legal and financial obligations directly to your physical production. That ensures the shipyard's cash flow aligns perfectly with the actual physical progress happening out on the slipway. Moving on to Section 2, main standard contract forms. Let's open up the industry toolkit and survey the landscape of the templates that are currently dominating commercial shipbuilding. As was brilliantly highlighted in Harilos Petrakakos' presentation to the SNIME Greek section, the global maritime industry has basically relied on a few core pillars for decades. You have the SOJ form out of Japan, the New Build Con from BIMCO, the AAWS form from Western Europe, and the SNI, or the Norwegian sales form. Understanding the historical context of these specific documents is absolutely crucial if you want to grasp how modern negotiations actually play out across different global regions today. Let's break down this modern ecosystem a bit further because it's a fascinating mix. First, there's the BIMCO New Build Con, which was established back in 2007. This one is meticulously designed to be highly balanced, which makes it a fantastic neutral starting point for international projects. Then we have the legendary SOJ form. Now, this was published way back in 1974, but despite its age, it absolutely remains the foundational baseline for the vast majority of new builds in Asian shipyards. And that includes massive production hubs in China, South Korea, and Japan. Then there's the AWS form, which served as the European counterweight for years. Today, though, it's largely considered a legacy template. And finally, we have SHIP 25. This is the newly updated 2025 Norwegian standard, and let me tell you, it is the premier choice for complex, high-value vessels. We're talking offshore supply vessels, advanced energy barges, that sort of thing. It's incredibly relevant today because it includes modernized clauses that are specifically tailored for green technologies, alternative fuels, and prototype engineering. Actually, I do have a quick question about the SAJ form. Given that it was published by the Shipowners Association of Japan all the way back in 1974, isn't it notoriously biased toward the shipyards? How does a buyer even work with that today? Oh, that is a fantastic point to raise, and you're spot on, yes.
Historically, the SAJ form is considered very, very builder-friendly, but the crucial point here is how it's actually handled in practice today. You see, it is very rarely used in its original unedited format. Nobody's just signing it as is. Instead, modern buyers and their legal teams utilize extensive rider clauses to heavily amend the core document. So the SAJ form acts as the structural foundation, sure, but those rider clauses are what actually achieve commercial balance and an equitable risk distribution between the yard and the owner.
And that need for balance builds directly into the need for highly specialized forms. When you compare a document like the Norwegian Ship 25 with BIMCO's RepairCon 2018 side by side, the contrasts are just stark. While Ship 25 is engineered specifically for handling with complex technical variations of prototype new builds, RepairCon is a completely different beast. It reflects the incredibly fast-paced, unpredictable reality of ship repair. Which brings us nicely to Section 3, new build versus repair contracts. This is a fundamental shift in how we approach project risk. Honestly, this transition is where estimators and shipyard managers always seem to break a sweat. When you bring an existing vessel into dry dock for a repair and you start dismantling equipment, you are inevitably going to find hidden damages that simply weren't in the original specification. How do standard legal frameworks handle that kind of massive scope uncertainty without the project just grinding to a halt? That is exactly the dividing line. It all comes down to how the contract handles the unknown. New build contracts like NewBuildCon rely on a fixed design. The entire schedule is defined strictly by the initial specifications. It's a highly predictable, linear process. Repair contracts, on the other hand, are structurally built for flexibility. Forms like RepairCon are designed around this central concept of discovery. They actually expect the yard to find hidden damage once you open things up. And because of that, they contain built-in, fast-track mechanisms to handle immediate scope additions without totally derailing the entire project timeline. When we compare these features directly, variation orders, or VOs, present a really stark contrast. Think about it. In a new build, VOs are frequent, sure, but they can generally be scheduled, engineered, and absorbed into the long-term timeline over several months, sometimes even years. In a repair scenario, VOs are constant, and they must be fast-tracked immediately. A yard literally cannot afford administrative delays while the vessel occupies a premium dry dock space. Furthermore, the delay risk profile is entirely different. A new build delay impacts a future potentially flexible delivery date, but a repair delay? That directly impacts a vessel's active, ongoing charter commitments. Liquidated damages in repair contracts are heavily tied to daily dry dock occupancy rates and the immediate lost charter revenue, which just fundamentally changes the financial risk calculation for the shipyard. Let's move into Section 4, integrating with project management. Moving from paper to the yard. Because honestly, translating that dense legal text into actionable shipyard production schedules is where the magic actually happens. So, the RepairCon standard form contains highly specific definitions for terms like scope of work and additional works. But here's the critical thing to remember. A contract is only as good as a shipyard's ability to execute it. Project planners must seamlessly integrate these exact contractual definitions right into their internal work breakdown structure, or WBS. When the contract dictates exactly how a variation must be recorded, how it must be verified and signed off on a work variation form, well, the yard's project management software and daily reporting procedures need to mirror that exact workflow. If they don't, you lose strict cost control, and you are basically guaranteeing a nightmare of end-of-project billing disputes. Now, the mechanics of milestone-based execution in new builds map directly to the physical progress out in the yard. Think about the big moments. Step 1, steel cutting. Step 2, key laying. Step 3, launching. When these specific, physically verifiable actions are achieved, they trigger the release of vital installment payments from the buyer and their financing banks. Therefore, your master scheduling software and the legal contract have to be perfectly synchronized. It's absolutely vital. Any disconnect at all between the physical production floor and the contractual milestones can immediately throttle a shipyard's cash flow, and that's a risk no manager wants to take. All right, Section 5, real-world shipyard advantages. How do we go about protecting the bottom line? How do these standardized clauses actually translate into daily, tangible benefits for your operations? Well, these 3 areas right here are exactly where production planning chiefs earn their salaries. First up, variation orders. The proper use of standard VO clauses guarantees that when extra work is inevitably discovered, the approval process and pricing metrics are completely pre-agreed. That prevents catastrophic workflow stoppages while a ship is just sitting there in a very expensive dry dock. Second, integration with class societies like ABS or DNV. The standard contract explicitly dictates that the vessel must be delivered in class without outstanding recommendations. This ensures technical compliance is inextricably tied to final payment, completely preventing any ambiguous quality standards. And third, subcontractor management. Forms like Ship 25 go into incredible detail to define clear responsibilities for complex, multi-tiered supply chains. This ensures that if a specialized vendor fails to deliver a critical component, the liability and mitigation steps are already clearly outlined, aggressively protecting the main yard from third-party failures. Of course, it's probably worth reminding everyone that these standard forms, whether we're talking about BIMCO or Ship 25, they're exactly that, just templates. You can't just fill in the blanks, sign them, and start cutting steel, right?
Absolutely correct. Major specialized maritime law firms like Vic Board Rain, who are actually highlighted in our source materials, they emphasize over and over that you must always use specialized legal counsel to customize the technical riders and the commercial terms. The standard form acts as your incredibly strong, historically tested foundation. However, your lawyers and your commercial directors are the ones who build upon that foundation. They have to tailor the clauses to suit the specific environment, the jurisdiction, and the technical reality of your bespoke project.
Which brings us to Section 6, Key Takeaways and Conclusion. Let's talk about empowering the shipyard and distill all of this intelligence into some actionable points you can actually use. So the crucial takeaways here are very clear. Number one, standard contracts are your operational blueprints. They're not just legal paperwork to be signed and filed away in a drawer somewhere. Number two, select the correct form. Do not try to force a new build form into a conversion project. You have to pick the right tool for the job, whether that's New Build Con, SAJ 25, or Repair Con. Number three, always remember the mindset shift. New builds require fixed, strict planning, whereas repairs demand flexible, rapid discovery mechanisms. And lastly, to truly protect your bottom line, you absolutely must directly integrate your variation order clauses and payment milestones straight into your daily project management software. I want to leave you with one final critical thought to take back to your teams today. I want you to look closely at your most recent project. Is your shipyard's current contract actively protecting your schedule and your cash flow, or is it just creating more ambiguity on the production floor? It might just be time to audit your standard forms and ensure your legal paperwork is working just as hard as your engineers. Thank you so much for joining this Masterclass Explainer. We'll see you next time.